both in Ferguson and in New York, creating a culture where you do not over-rely on this very broad power you have. It becomes exceptionally rare for you to have to ever point to this and say, I needed to use force and I need this protection. That should not happen except in the most unusual circumstances.
Jim Kavanaugh, I want to hear from you and Eugene tonight as cops, as people who've been there, been out on the street, and that this sensation that some try to suggest that, well, you know, police are under siege and it's this horribly dangerous job and they're just on edge all the time. Talk about what it's like in these kinds of situations. You have to approach someone who maybe is selling cigarettes without the proper taxation. Exactly what is the kind of attitude you bring to an encounter like that? Because that's what Eric Garner was suspected of doing, evading the sales tax in New York City and New York State.
Right, well that should be something very easy and conversational, really. I mean, we need to look at some of these, to answer your question, Lawrence, and you framed it right. You know, in policing years ago, when we would get in a car chase, I mean, we were in that car chase no matter what. I mean, if it was, no matter what the violation was, we would chase that guy over 7 states because we believed we had to catch him, and we'd have a string of police cars going back 100 deep, because nobody we would let get away. And that was the business in the police for years, and Eugene was around then, and I was as well. But cooler heads have prevailed because we've understood the disasters that come when chasing some guy for a traffic violation results in a wreck that kills a family. So police departments have reined that back in. Sergeants will call it into the chase unless we're after some violent felon. Well, we need to think like that, too, on the street. If you would just imagine if Officer Wilson in Ferguson had just taken a step back after the confrontation at the vehicle, as you and I have talked about, and Michael Brown ran away. Just after that, he'd already called for backup, which is 90 seconds away. You know, where is Michael Brown going to go? He's going to go to the hospital. He's been shot. He's not going to Kathmandu on an airplane. You're going to catch him. Just take a step back. In Mr. Garner's case as well, I mean, when he puts his hands like this, is like, okay. When they get on his back, take a step back. Take a step back. In the Cleveland case with the child, if you drive your car in like that, if you have an escaped felon with a gun who wants to kill the cops, you're dead. He's going to shoot you as soon as you drive up. What kind of tactic is that?
Period.
So, take a step back and be smart, and we can police better than we're doing.
And Eugene, what Jim is talking about is something that the public has no idea is part of police training, which is retreat. Reasonable retreat in situations where there is nothing at stake in closing in on this person. Eric Garner is a good example of that. Michael Brown's a good example of that. What's the worst that can happen? Well, you know, Eric Garner will continue to stand here a little bit longer. That's the worst that can happen as more and more cops surround him, give him breathing room, a horrible expression to use in this situation. But there's the mythology from TV and movies that it is, like Jim says, it's chase them down, get them at all costs, get them at all costs. Talk about the reasonable methods of stepping back and the word retreat and how it is used in police training.
Well, it should be noted there are tons of police officers in this country that are horrified by this outcome.
Yes.
Both of these outcomes, tons of them.
Yeah.
And my heroes in the New York City Police Department, and they're out there, some of them are still there, some of them are retired, are the people that invariably were able to solve things peacefully. Mm-hmm. And they were heroic figures, and I saw it done many, many times. And the question is, how do we replicate that? How do we make that the model? Forget the law. The law is a conversation that's a whole other but we need to figure out how to replicate that. There's so many people in different fields that aren't armed that manage to do to deal with violent confrontations non-violently. How do we get that kind of skill set into the police business as well?
And I know when you say forget the law, you mean let's have the right laws governing all of this, but the real change must come within police culture.
Go way beyond the law.
Yeah.
As they do on firearms in New York City. Right. And managed to rein that into a policy
stricter than the law. That's right. Eugene O'Donnell and Jim Kavanaugh.